I am so pleased to have Dr. Richard Shamus. This is we gotta stop meeting like this. We were on the radio earlier today, so we don't see each other for a few months, and then we are together twice in one day. Dr. Richard Shamus is famous for his work on thyroid. Hi, come on, have a seat. We just got started just in time. And he has written some books, which you can look at when we're done here. He's going to speak for about 20 minutes on some of the things he and his wife have found out about fluoride and its effect on thyroid. He's very instrumental in working with us in Sonoma County. We have a city-by-city strategy to get the cities to send a letter to board supervisors so by March of next year they don't vote for fluoride. The city of Sebastopol and he was instrumental in getting the city of Cotati to write a letter to the board of supervisors. So that's why he's very important to us. He's with us all the way on this, and so I'm going to get out of the way and let you talk. So,
thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, Doctor.
Listen, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm a medical doctor. I've been practicing for over 35 years. I went to Harvard undergraduate. I went to the University of Pennsylvania. I did extra research work at the National Institutes of Health with Nobel Prize winner Marshall Nirenberg. I've been involved in science my whole life. I'm here to talk about the science of fluoridation. Now, when I first got into the practice of medicine, first got into medical school, I was, like maybe some of you earlier on, of the feeling that fluoridation was good. It was a low-risk maneuver that had a high yield in terms of benefiting tooth decay. I don't feel that way anymore. In fact, I feel quite the opposite. It's a higher risk maneuver, and it has a very low yield. And I'm here tonight to tell you why I changed my mind about fluoridation. So I need a timekeeper. I need someone to give me a 10-minute warning and then a 5-minute warning.
I will do that, Richard.
Good, good, all right. I started off in the practice of medicine as a GP. It turns out now I do mostly thyroid work, and that's partly because my wife came down with a thyroid problem after we were married. We learned enough about additional and sometimes called alternative treatments for her thyroid problem, and got her, instead of doing 50% of her old self, she's up to 110% of her old self. The way we did that, we decided to put together in some books because it was helping her. I started doing it more in my practice. It was helping a lot of other people. The thyroid situation is an epidemic right now. We have what could be between 30 and 40 million people having a thyroid problem. There are more prescriptions written for thyroid than just about for any other condition. Ask any pharmacist, what's the category of medicines that you fill most prescriptions for? It's thyroid medicines. And you don't hear much about it because thyroid doesn't kill you, although it sometimes can make you wish you were dead. Putting some of this material about this very common condition, low thyroid, sometimes high thyroid, into a book was my goal. And this was about 15 years ago. So with my wife's help, because she's good with writing and computers, we started with this book. This is called Thyroid Power. And this was a compilation of the patients in my practice that were doing better with not just regular thyroid treatment, but with some special thyroid treatment. Now, when you do a book, especially when the book is from a New York company, this was HarperCollins, and they said, document everything you say carefully, and then put it in footnotes and so forth. So we started looking at the research, and were surprised to find something that I had not been taught in medical school. something that my wife, who's a registered nurse for 20 years, had not been taught. And that is that there's a connection, an important connection, between this extremely common condition called low thyroid and fluoride. It's the thyroid-fluoride connection that we did not know anything about and stumbled upon doing research for the documentation for the Thyroid Power book. One of the things that we found out in this early work was that fluoride is not quite so innocuous as we had first thought. I figured it was just some loony bins who were all worried about fluoride. It's not dangerous at this particular low concentration that's put into the water supply, and it must be helpful to teeth because everyone says it's so helpful to teeth. And I was a doctor. But I'm reading now about the connection between thyroid and more problems with people who live in fluoridated areas. There were doctors whose patients would be under good control in a non-fluoridated area, and they would move into a municipality that had fluoride, and then their thyroid would start acting up and become a problem again, need to be readjusted, have problems, and then they would move out of the fluoridated area to a non-fluoridated city, and the problems would go away. So this went on and on. There were a number of citations in the medical literature. There were a number of practitioners. I was a scientist, so I spoke to scientists. And it was just amazing to me and to my wife that I had been sold a bill of goods about how safe fluoride was and how effective it was. And I'm in the medical profession. So we decided to put some of that material into the book. And it was at great risk because anyone who comes out against fluoride must be a little crazy, right? Because it's so good. It's like mom and apple pie. No, it's not. For many, many years, well before World War II, fluoride was a very grim workplace poison. Its public image has been laundered. And that's what we're left with today. It's no longer rat poison. It's a little smiling 5-year-old girl who now has no cavities because she's drinking fluoridated water. We put in the book something that I did not know about. And that is that fluoride had been used to deliberately slow down thyroid function for people that were hyperthyroid, high thyroid. You can be low thyroid, you can be high thyroid. And if you're high thyroid, sometimes that's very difficult to control. What was the medicine that was used to slow down thyroid function before we had PTU and methimazole, the two of the common medicines that are used now? It was fluoride. And it was in medical reports. Medical literature reported how much fluoride was needed to slow down thyroid function. When I saw that, I realized, oh boy, I had really missed the boat. Because in my medical training, I had been told by the heads of pharmacology, where I was at my medical school, all the professors, it was that no substance has just one action on the human body. No substance has one action, just one action. Every substance that you can think of, every item, every herb, every medicine, they all have multiple actions. And there's one action, if it's favorable, you call it the benefit. And if there are other actions, hopefully they're minor and small and not too serious, and you call them the side effects. And I had been given the impression, wrongly, that fluoridation of public water was the one item that had only benefits and no side effects. And then during the research for this book, we found out, no, that's not possible. There are side effects. All right. Now, for instance, the Archives of Oral Biology, Medical Journal, Archives of Oral Biology, 1982, volume 27, Dr. Klinner found that fluoride interfered with proper metabolism of cyclic AMP and thus diminished cellular energy. This is one of the side effects that the substance can have. What is cyclic AMP? It is the way every bit of food that you eat becomes energy in the body. It's the energy currency, the coin, that's used and stored and then spent for whenever we need to do something that requires energy. And fluoride, according to Dr. Klinner, interfered with that, slowed it down, diminished it. And this was in a prestigious journal, not just a journal, but a journal of oral biology, all right? So when we came out with this second book, this is Feeling Fat, Fuzzy, or Frazzled. When we came out with this, we started putting some of this new research into this book. And we're overwhelmed with how many research articles from all over the globe were listing more and more of these side effects. And at the same time, there was more and more question about the efficacy of fluoridated municipal water. Now, a lot of people feel, and I was reading the journal articles, that fluoride, when applied by a dentist on the tooth, well, can help fight cavities. But when you put it into the municipal water supplies and you drink it, and some of it goes past the teeth, but most of it is going inside your body, you're getting more of the side effect and less of the benefit. And some people say you're getting all side effect and no benefit, or very little.
You're only just now at 10 minutes. You're doing great. You want me to give you
Thank you. Perfect. Okay. So for those of you who are falling asleep, take heart. It's we're halfway through, okay?
No, they all look wide awake.
Good. Okay. Many of the scientists that I know about would say, okay, look, you can have these side effects. It depends on the dose. It depends on the concentration of the substance. So if the concentration of the substance is low enough, that there would be low side effects, but still maybe some benefit. So there was a study that we put into the book here about, and it went way back. This was in 1958. Galletti and Joyette published in the prestigious Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism. That's one of the top journals in this country. And it was called The Effect of Fluorine on Thyroid Iodine Metabolism and Hyperthyroidism. They were confirming this Merck manual inclusion of fluoride as a medicine to slow down thyroid function for people that had too high a thyroid, hyperthyroidism. And they found that between 2 and 4 parts per million, you were slowing down thyroid function. Okay? Now, a person in a fluoridated area gets more than that. Between the amount of fluoride that you're getting from the water and the amount of fluoride that you're getting from the juices in the soups that are made with the water, et cetera, the average person, it's been estimated, you get 3 or somewhere 3.5 milligrams of fluoride a day. And that's just right in line with what would slow your thyroid down. So that went into the book. Then, later, we wrote this one. This is Thyroid Mind Power. Thyroid Mind Power delineates the mental symptoms that this condition can give you. Thyroid is a physical illness, but it has mental symptoms. Like what? Like depression, anxiety, sleep disturbance, memory loss, excess cravings, Hard to believe. Those are some of the top illnesses in the country right now, right? And they're being treated for with a lot of other kinds of medicines. But many people have those conditions because their thyroid is being diminished. There are lots of other chemicals in our environment that are diminishing thyroid function. But fluoride is one that we deliberately put into water and we could eliminate. Part of this book included some references to the work of Phyllis Mullinex. Phyllis worked on brain function, and it turns out fluoride interferes with that, partly because fluoride interferes with thyroid function. Phyllis Mullinex showed that there were serious, hers and other studies were showing minute amounts of heavy metals, much less than would be generally considered toxic. Heavy metals, you know what they are. Yeah, arsenic is one, okay? Or lead, cadmium, mercury. You've heard of those. Well, they're all around us. They're in water, but in very, very small amounts. But when you add fluoride, the combination of the fluoride and those heavy metals can cause some serious disturbance. According to Phyllis Mullinex, who's been a toxicologist for 45 years and is well respected in her field, fluoride ions, especially when along with lead or cadmium or mercury ions, will interfere with the G proteins in the cells, the important G proteins. What are those? Every hormone, like thyroid, but any hormone like estrogen or progesterone, any hormone is like a key that can do something and find a lock and open the lock. The lock is the receptor, the hormone receptor. And the hormone receptors are some of the most complex pieces of protoplasm in the body. And they're made up of these G proteins. And that's what fluoride kind of interferes with. Now, a very famous biochemist named Kenneth Kirk, and that we had to put in here too. Kenneth Kirk talked about in a book he wrote called The Biology of Elemental Halogens. And he described fluoride as a remarkable destructor of enzyme systems. Your enzyme systems, what's that? Chemical reactions often take place at a higher temperature. When you want to make something happen, you do it 200, 300, 400 degrees. In the body, it's a low temperature, 100 degrees, 98.6. And so to make chemical reactions happen, you use enzymes. And this famous biochemist said fluoride disrupts enzymes. And it turns out he's not the only one. There was a fellow named Hugo Theorel. He's a medical doctor. He won the Nobel Prize, okay? The Nobel Prize in what? In chemistry. What kind of chemistry? Enzyme chemistry. This was a doctor who won the Nobel Prize in enzyme chemistry. What did he say? He said the fluoride ion exerts a toxic effect by inhibiting the action of not just one, but many enzyme systems at once. What does he know? He won the Nobel Prize, right? Okay. What I'm wanting you to hear is what happened to me and my wife when we were wanting to tell people about her success, and we wanted to write books on thyroid. We stumbled upon this disconnect between what is happening in terms of what are government agencies or government civil servants, what they're doing for us, and evidently for our health, supposedly, or for our children's health. There's a disconnect between what they're doing and what the scientists are saying. The scientists are pretty clear that what we have is now a medical substance that is being put into the water for a medical purpose to help with the reduced tooth decay. But it is having more side effects than we've been told about. And I'm not talking about this today, but other people will tell you. And it is less effective than we've been reassured that it is. So we have now, I'm here because of this disconnect. I watched on TV the Minister of Health for an entire country. It was the health minister for the state of Israel. And he was talking about why they have banned fluoridation for the entire country. Not just for the city of Healdsburg, but for the entire country of Israel. They have better scientists. They have better doctors. They are on it when it comes to health science. And they have banned fluoridation of municipal water. And the Minister of Health was talking to a group, especially at this point, it was in the corner, a whole group of dentists who were, wanting to say that this was a mistake. And he said, listen, not only did we have this epidemic since we fluoridated of increased asthma in all of our children, but you have to know that it reduces thyroid function in our population. So you have not just me, but a number of other folks who are saying that there's something wrong with this. Now, why is the disconnect? Why aren't you hearing some of this from public officials? Well, the EPA, for instance, they're out to protect us. The EPA has not come out against fluoride, but what about its members? Okay. July 2nd of 1997, the National Treasury Employers Union, Chapter 280, okay, Local 2056, representing 1,500 scientists, engineers, lawyers, and other professionals of the studies indicates that there's a causal link between fluoridation and genetic damage, neurological impairment, bone pathology, etc. Etc. Wow! It's already enough, but now there's an etc. Okay, this is the EPA, only not officially government EPA. This is a union that represents 1,500. It turns out there are other unions, and the total amount of EPA people that are against fluoridation is 7,000. All right. Why, with that going on, why isn't the Public Health Service coming out against it? They are the ones that originally endorsed it, okay? The Public Health Service can never come out and say, we made a mistake. Not only was it a mistake, it was the most colossal mistake ever in the history of government science. They're never going to say that. You could be waiting for Godot before they would say that. They're not going to say that. There's too much litigation possible. There's too much. They're never going to say that. So instead, I believe, because I'm an optimist, I believe they're secretly hoping that people like us will convince city fathers like those in Healdsburg that it's not a good idea anymore. Basically, fluoridation of public water supplies is a bad idea whose time has passed. Thank you. Right.
You went 20 minutes.
Okay, there's 20 minutes. Now, what we have are question and answer, okay? Yeah. I'll do the questions, you do the answers. How about that? Okay. We're going to change it up? No, you don't want to do it. But okay, you ask the questions and I'll try to give you answers. Remember now, I'm here talking about one particular aspect, the thyroid fluoride connection. But you heard from the EPA union that, there are a lot of other connections. There are a lot of other side effects. How could there be so many? Well, there's many because it's a total insult to all the different cells and organs of the body. It's not just targeted. It's a very general. And if you lower thyroid function, thyroid is the gas pedal for everything else. So you lower everything else. Skin, hair, nails. What is thyroid? Low thyroid causes fatigue, depression, overweight, dry hair, dry skin, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, low libido, a whole host of female problems, everything from bad PMS to endometriosis pain. You can have infertility believe it or not, low thyroid causes a lot of infertility. And yes, it causes miscarriage, especially recurrent miscarriage, and terrible menopause. So you don't want to be constantly every day taking something that will diminish your thyroid function. Now, that was a question that you didn't hear asked, but I did. I'm psychic, and I could tell you that that was a question on your mind, so I answered it. All right, what's the next question? All right.
Tell me if this isn't the right.
Now, so you have to speak up, and I'll repeat the question as well.
Okay. So how long does fluoride stay in your, like, let's say you've been drinking fluoridated water and you have fluoride in your body. If you stop drinking fluoride, do you eventually get rid of it? Does it do its damage and then be done, or does it stay?
All right, look, a very complex question. The question is, if you've been drinking fluoridated water and maybe you're beginning to feel some effects or not, you don't know, but suppose you stop drinking fluoridated water, how long will it stay in your system? It is variable depending on who you are and what other kinds of illnesses and you have and how fast your metabolism and so forth. But the short answer is, okay, because they've written big papers about all this. The short answer is you're better off. It's like, or is it better to stop smoking? Oh, gee, a lot of damage is done. No, you stop and it's better to have stopped. You stop drinking fluoride, it's better to have stopped. You will get better and better and better. Next question.
What about your showers?
What about the showers? The question is, what about taking showers? If you live in a fluoridated area, it's not just the water that you're brushing your teeth with. It's the water that you're drinking every day. It's the water that you're bathing your babies in. It's the water that the kids are running across the lawn in the sprinklers. It's the water that you're showering in. And if the people have a pool or a hot tub, it's the water that's in that. And some of it you ingest because it's a vapor, and some of it maybe you absorb. There's not much absorption through the skin, but who knows, some. The answer is, why have any of it? That's right. It's like, oh boy, 99% of the fluoride that's added goes down the drain. But before it does that, maybe we're getting more of it than we should. And speaking of that, this was, I know, part of your question. I know this was part of your question. Fluoride is not what's added to the water supply, okay?
Oh, yeah.
When we talk about fluoride that dentists use, or fluoride that's in your toothpaste, that might be helpful and maybe a low potential for side effects. What is added to the water? Okay, I'm asking the question, you give the answer. What is being added to the water? It's not fluoride. There was back in the 40s, there was 1 or 2 cities that had fluoride, sodium fluoride added to the water. That's never been done since. What is being added?
Healdsburg actually gets sodium fluoride.
They get sodium fluoride in Healdsburg. Healdsburg is the top banana. Right, okay. Healdsburg is the wine country spectacular, and they're using sodium fluoride. Almost every other city, that's not what's being added.
It's from Solvay, which is a byproduct that comes from Texas.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What is being added to the water to make it fluoridated is the, yes, thank you. Hydrofluosilicic acid. What's that? That is the industrial waste product that comes from the inside of smokestacks. The smokestacks had to scrub the fluoride out of the smoke, or else the smoke would have gone, and the farmers who were around these smokestacks did not want fluoride messing up their crops. Does fluoride mess up crops? Yes. Does fluoride, does it hurt farm animals? Yes. So the fluoride is scrubbed from the smokestacks that capture it, and that product, contaminated with lead, arsenic, mercury, and cadmium, is called hydrofluosilicic acid. And it's very toxic, very caustic. And in a tanker truck, it would take thousands of dollars to dispose of properly. But what does the company get to do? It used to be, they were aluminum companies, but now it's mostly phosphate fertilizer company. What do? They get to sell it. Not to Healdsburg, but they get to sell it to almost every other municipality that's using it. All right, there's a question in the back. Yes.
Well, it's not exactly a question, but when you look up on the Healdsburg site and you see that it's supplied by Solvay, and you go to the Solvay site, they say that the sodium fluoride is distilled or created from the hydrophilic blah, 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 acid.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And
it comes from
it comes from it, and you wonder how really purified it actually is when there are all these other contaminants that it can have and often does have. So the whole business, I could mention that this whole business of fluoridating the water, whether it's with the Solvang product, it's never been approved. This, if you ask the Solvay company, or if you get a hold of the people that are doing hydrofluorosilicic acid, and you say, is this an approved medicine, or an approved drug, or an approved substance to be added? No, it's not. Okay? Have there been any tests on this stuff? That we're putting it into the water. Have there been tests to show that it's safe? Maybe, how about tests to show that it's effective? No! No! None! So, we have a big problem. And because of this, there are a lot of cities that have rejected this whole idea. Okay? Healdsburg has a chance to reject the idea. And who else has rejected it? All right, how about Albany, New York, Olympia, Washington, Flagstaff, Arizona, Colorado Springs, Colorado, Spokane, Washington, Quebec City, Quebec, Honolulu, Hawaii, Billings, Montana, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Fairbanks, Alaska, Bradford, Vermont, Ithaca, New York, 40 different towns in Nebraska. Wow!
Crescent City.
Crescent City, yeah. Well, okay, no. The California group, I'm saving for last. Okay, all right. Okay, because what we have, okay, what's the story about this? Is it a bunch of kooks? No, there's some very serious-minded people who looked at this as carefully as possible and they said, no, we don't want it. How about the country of Holland? Sensible people. They've been around and doing sensible things for hundreds and hundreds of years longer than we have. New York used to be called New Amsterdam, right? I mean, they were there early on, and they were smart people. They said no dice to fluoride. Finland, Denmark, Sweden, the whole country of India. Wow, that's a lot of people, over 1 billion people? Gee, why isn't the government asking to get them fluoridated? Poor things. No, they're smarter than we are. How about the whole country of Japan? They're a more modern, industrialized society practically than we are. They said no. Now, what about right here at home, okay? Right here in California. Well, Santa Barbara said no. Santa Cruz, Watsonville, Crescent City, Davis, Napa, and my own Katati all said no dice. So that's why we're here. We'd like the good folks of Healdsburg to say no dice as well. At least in Healdsburg, it's top drawer. They're using the better stuff, and also they're giving people the vote. They're letting folks decide. Most of the time, that doesn't happen. You are told you're going to have fluoridated water. Yes?
This isn't a question, but one time I Googled Solvay, which is the company that we buy our sodium fluoride.
Sure. The company, because Solvay that...
I wanted to look at the product and look at the MSDS, and it's terrifying. And it's terrifying to me that we would keep adding something to the water that has this many precautionary statements for just about every aspect of the human body, and that we would think that we could add just a little bit of it and that we're safe.
Right.
How long have we been fluoridating Healdsburg?
Since 1953.
62 years.
It's time for a change. And the political parlance, it's time for a change. Yes, now there's a question. Yes.
So research that you mentioned, does that take into account that a lot of the forms of fluoride that we're getting are heated up, like in soups, or when we heat it for a bottle, or when we heat it for any reason? When they're talking about how much is bad for you, doesn't that affect how... Okay,
the question is, what about when you heat things up? Does that change it? Because there are some items I'm told that if you heat up marijuana, it makes it more potent. But there are other things that
You're checking to see if everyone's awake.
but there are other maneuvers, other things that when heated may not be so good for you. If you put baby formula in certain kinds of plastic bottles and heat them up, you're liable to be leaching more of the BHP into the milk, which is not good for the baby. It's a hormone disruptor. So there are many things like that. But as far as fluoride being worse when you heat it, no, I don't think it gets any worse. It doesn't get any worse than just that it's there. I don't think it's worse in heating it. I don't know the actual details. Phyllis Molinex, if she were here, she might know that, but I don't.
I was under the impression that it concentrates it and actually makes it much more powerful and exacerbates the side effects.
Well, if you are, for instance, boiling water for spaghetti and a lot of the water boils off, the amount of whatever is in there that doesn't boil off, and maybe some of the heavy metals and the fluoride,
Would be higher,
yeah, it would be in a higher concentration. But that's not a big effect. But that's a possible one. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Unlike boiling something and then the chlorine does evaporate.
Well, I don't know if the chlorine, I don't know. Here's the thing about that. Fluoride is very difficult to get out of water. And you can't just use a regular filter. It's a small ion, and it goes through any filter that you would have. The carbon block filters, those big filters. To get the fluoride out, you have to do a major reverse osmosis maneuver, and a distillation process would be helpful. So if distillation is helpful, that means that what boils off is good stuff, and what remains is the bad stuff. So that is further reinforcement of your answer to the question. Yes, it's worse if it's boiling. Just heating, I'm not sure, but boiling water, you're concentrating it. Another question.
Would fluoride being used in city water in Healdsburg also affect wells and, like the wineries and people in the outer edges?
I'm glad you asked me that. My son did a science project when we were back in Florida. I lived and practiced in Boca Raton, Florida for a while. The topic of fluoride had come up around there because Florida, especially South Florida around there, is where all those little houseplants that you go to the food store or you go to the hardware store, you buy these little tiny plants and you take them home and they grow into big ones, okay? Those little plants, a lot of them, they come from Florida. And the growers who make those little plants and are very concerned about the amount of money that they make when they go to all the work to grow these little plants, they don't want fluoridated water. They have said this. Now, my son did this science fair project to see if they were right. He had different concentrations of fluoride in water and grew the same plant with all the different concentrations. And the higher the concentration of the fluoride, the worse the plant did. And at certain high concentrations, he couldn't get it to go at all. So a municipality that is totally dependent on its wine and its wine sales and the vineyards, boy, it would be, if I was in charge, it'd be the last thing I'd do is to put a lot of fluoride in the water. What if it injures the vineyards? Okay, so the vineyards have been around for 50, 60 years, have been fluoridating. Would they have been more productive? Would they be more productive now? Is there a possible blight? Oh, God forbid, that could, affect, that it would be more likely if the plants were weakened in some way because of fluoridated water, that yes, the city uses fluoridated water, and it sure, does it get the groundwater, do the wells get contaminated? Who knows? So I would be just delighted, because I like good wine. I would be delighted if Healdsburg stopped fluoridating its water.
I saw a study where fluoride used on grapes causes a longer fermentation time, which anytime you take more time in the industry, it's more money.
Yes.
And fluoride on plants makes them more, and humans makes them more thirsty, which is not a good thing in a drought. And Healdsburg is now using reclaimed water to spray on wineries. I had a wine owner who doesn't want to use it because the tertiary treatment plant, the sewage treatment plant in this town is only tertiary treatment, not reverse osmosis, not nanofiltration, not distilling it. So that fluoride is coming right back out and going on the plants, on the grape.
Right. So
I know the owner of Casadero Winery, Preston, there's a couple of them that don't want to use it, and they're telling me have to use it because they want water.
right. Now, what you may want to do for this campaign is to get a hold of the people at the wineries and just run that past them. Just let this bug, put a little bug in their ear about, oh man, you may not want to use fluoridated water and spraying and whatever, all this reclaimed water, it's going to be maybe more of a problem than you like. Okay, next question.
Another comment. All the fluoride, or so much of the fluoride that's ending up in wine that's making it difficult to export it to Europe comes from the fact that they're using herbicides and pesticides from those fertilizer industries that you mentioned to use on Northern California grapes because they have a particular problem, and I think is it the
European
It's just
Union does
grapes
not want
in our area.
wines imported with a certain amount of concentration of fluoride.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, so only 2% of Europe fluoridates its water. They have had it. They have done with this process. And
they're stopping the
And
export.
yeah, it wouldn't be good for exports. So what are you each going to do? Get a hold of some of the wineries. Talk to them about that. They're going to vote too, you know? Okay. Yes, question.
So I always have the same question at these types of events because I'm a dental hygienist.
You are right in the field. Let me hear it. Get it.
I'm against water fluoridation, but in talking, and I grew up here, so I've been talking to a lot of people, and I know, the dentists have the biggest yes or P signs, and people, in talking, their first thing is like, well, I'm going to talk to my dentist about that and see what they say. And as you being a doctor, it's always my question in approaching
It's a good question.
medical health
Sure.
community.
All right, it's a very good question. The dentists are all for it. How come? All right, I know a dentist in Katati who's not all for it. Not just a hygienist. This is a dentist who says, look, I put it on the teeth and it does some good. Maybe not too much harm. You put it in the water, what's the sense of that? It's not doing what it's supposed to, and it could be causing all these other problems. This is a dentist, okay? What about the Dental Society, the American Dental Association, ADA? They are all for it. Well, can you trust them? They endorse it. Can you trust endorsements? No, you can't trust endorsements. Endorsements are not science. The Dental Association gets a lot of its money from where? Would you guess?
Smith Klein, Eli Lilly,
Right.
Big Pharma,
Big Pharma, okay.
Pfizer.
Right.
We have this.
Okay. The dental associations are in the business of protecting the reputation and the earnings of their members. They're not in any way involved in protecting you. It's nice that the dentists, some of them, seem to honestly feel like it's protecting you. They know, they have seen that fluoride applied to the teeth is really effective. Why wouldn't it be effective in the water? They haven't gone that far. There's something about a dentist who doesn't study the details of what is being put into the water, mostly not sodium fluoride, of the fact that it's never been shown to be effective. Regardless of what you hear, it's not been shown to be effective. The original research to prove that it would be effective was two cities, Grand Rapids and Muskegon, okay? Grand Rapids was fluoridated, Muskegon was not. And otherwise they're very similar cities. And it was going to be 10 years, from 1945 to 1955, and then they were going to analyze the data. All right, within a few years, 3-4 years after, they noticed that there was less tooth decay in Grand Rapids than there was before. Success! And so the Public Health Service and Dental Association, everybody's totally into fluoride. Wait, they forgot to check Muskegon. Muskegon also had less cavities, and the same amount less. The post-war period, people were getting better health care, they were eating better food, and there was more dental care available, and there was less cavities around. The cities that have hoped to do the dental work for them, to have fluoride do dental work for them. For instance, the Board of Supervisors of this county said to me, "We have a dental problem here in this county, and I'm going to do something about it." Okay, what did he want to do about it? He wanted to fluoridate the water supplies. And I told him, why not ask the people of Boston, who had the very same dental emergency and started fluoridating, and now they still have a dental emergency. It is still a problem. There are cities all across the country that are fluoridating, and they still have as much of a dental emergency as they had before. It hasn't helped. Okay, you get to explain to people, as a dental hygienist, you get to explain to people the difference between putting fluoride on your teeth at a dentist office, brushing with fluoride toothpaste at home, the difference between that and putting hydrofluorosilicic acid in the city water and hoping it's going to do some good. Grand Rapids, Muskegon, the same. One was fluoridated, one was not. And you see that across the country now, even today. There are, the state of West Virginia found out with just the regular government statistics that the people who were in fluoridated urban areas, the children, had just as bad a teeth problem as the non-fluoridated kids who were living out in the country. They did this, across their state. Wasn't helping. So it doesn't matter that it wasn't helping. I think it's being pushed by dental societies. It's being pushed by the Public Health Service because they don't want to admit to the most colossal mistake ever in the history of government science.
Yeah, in fact, this is very much like Philip Morris all over again, because actually when the proof was coming out that people were dying from cigarettes, Philip Morris dug in its heels and its attorneys even tighter, as we knew that it was killing people. So it's kind of happening that way across the country, but there are some class action lawsuits and stuff that are starting around the country for the damage done to people's teeth. So you're going to see a little digging in.
There's damage done. All right, don't let that one go, okay? The whole story about Philip Morris, the damage done. It is known by the people who do the fluoridation that when you increase the amount of fluoride in a community, that more and more children will have this other problem that isn't talked about much. It's called dental fluorosis. You've heard of that? Mm-hmm. Do you know what it is? Dental fluorosis is when there's enough fluoride that's hitting the teeth that the teeth become mottled. There's just little white spots here and there. That's like, I saw it on my daughter because she had, in the old days when I was a believer, and all that, I sent her to the dentist and we did fluoride treatments, and she had these white spots on her teeth. So I asked the dentist, "What is that?" "Oh, that's nothing." Okay, it's not nothing. It's not nothing. It didn't bother her so much because eventually we stopped with the fluoride. But for kids that keep getting a lot of fluoride, the white spots then become places where the enamel gets weak and breaks down. And eventually there's dental problems, surgical dental problems. Okay, next question.
Have you mapped kind of incidence of hypothyroidism to fluoridation?
Well, my colleague, John Lee lived in Sonoma County after he retired. He practiced medicine in Mill Valley, California for maybe 45 years, a long time. And he was the doctor who did some of this mapping. He found that the patients who moved in and out of fluoridated areas their thyroid health was better outside of a fluoridated area. And he saw this go back and forth, actually. So I have not done this personally, but I've seen his charts, and it's impressive.
Did he publish a book about it? Or?
He published a book about progesterone. He was such a great guy, he could have published a book about a lot of things, but his book was about natural bioidentical progesterone. What your doctor may not tell you about it. That's what he said. Yes?
Is fluoride considered a drug? Is it classified as a drug?
They asked me this at the Katati City Council. They said, "Doctor, you're talking as if this stuff is a drug. Is it a drug?" So I said, yes, it is. A drug is the term we use for a substance that has been chosen to do a particular function in the human body. And we administer it to people in amounts that they would not get themselves. That is a drug. And I call fluoride a drug. We are actually putting a drug into the water supply. Hopefully, the idea is to take care of the cavities of the smaller members of our society.
I thought you had to be a doctor to prescribe a drug.
Well, yes, this is the only incidence where a drug is administered without a doctor's prescription and to a whole city all at once. Okay?
In an uncontrolled dose.
Totally uncontrolled dose. No one knows how much any one person could be getting, because some people drink a lot. If you're athletic and you run and so you get bicycle exercise, so you're going to be drinking a lot of water. You'll have a lot of fluoride. Okay, and it is absolutely a drug.
I'd like to know your thoughts on iodine supplementation and if that would help somebody who has been exposed to fluoride for a long period of time in their life.
Sure. The iodine, there's a whole controversy about iodine as far as thyroid function or for other functions. Iodine is one of those items that actually has a crucial biochemical use in the body. Fluoride does not. But iodine has uses, important uses. Thyroid hormone, okay? It's one of the things that's in this book. Thyroid hormone is made from iodine. Every molecule of thyroid hormone, if it's T4, the storage thyroid hormone, has 4 atoms of iodine. And if it's active thyroid hormone, it's 3 atoms of iodine for every molecule of thyroid hormone. This is a major hormone in your body, and you need iodine to make it. The question is, if you're dealing with fluoride, is it going to be helpful to increase your iodine level? We'd like to think that that was the case. Except that if you look at the periodic table, fluorine is right at the top. It's the most reactive. Thank you. It's the
most reactive halogen on the periodic table.
It's the most reactive halogen on the periodic table. And next comes chloride and next comes iodine. Okay. So, I mean bromine. No, next comes bromine and then iodine. Okay. So what you have is a very weakly reactive substance trying to compete with a very harshly reactive substance. The reason fluoride is used in industry, the reason it was used in rat poison, the reason it was used as an insecticide, the reason it's used
etching glass,
the reason it was used in Prozac. How many of you are on Prozac? No, don't answer. That's
well, this is a happy group.
This is a happy group. It's one of the most reactive of all the elements, bar none. And I don't think the weakly reactive iodine would have a chance. Okay? So I don't personally know of the research that suggests, or the people who've studied this or observed it, that would suggest that increasing your iodine level will really help. There's other reasons to increase your iodine level, and some doctors are even talking about increasing your iodine level a whole lot because that's going to be helpful. The jury is still out in my mind about that, but as far as would it help with this whole business that we've got with fluoride, boy, I don't know. If you're low in iodine, then the fluoride might be more of a problem than if you were sufficient in iodine. So people who are low in iodine, and there's more and more low iodine in this country because we used to put iodine in the bread dough. That was for everybody. Now it's in some salt, and some people use regular salt, and some people use iodized salt. So there's less and less iodine that's being put out into the society, and some people are getting less than their fair share of it. If you had some of those people, not people that were okay, sufficient in iodine, or even had plenty of it, replete with iodine, but people who are deficient in iodine, and give them fluoridated water, it sounds like a recipe for disaster. Would it be helpful to give them iodine? Now that's been tried in a lot of places. That's been tried around the world because there are a lot of places in the world, mostly landlocked countries, in Africa and Asia and so forth, but where the iodine levels are very low, and it's terrible. When that happens, there's mental retardation, there's all kinds of illnesses. And you give people iodine, and it is a problem. It makes for hyperthyroidism, Hashimoto's, autoimmune thyroiditis. It's been studied in China and extensively, where you just can't go and take a lot of it and expect that something good will happen. It's something that is best taken in over the course of a long, long period of time.
Any more questions?
I have one.
Yes, hi. I didn't see you over there.
Hello.
You've been hiding this whole time.
But I've been listening very carefully.
Yes, listen.
You've talked a lot about the health aspects. And what concerns me is that the ADA has said that mothers who feed their babies up to 6 months of age with formula must not mix it with fluoridated water.
All right, now you hear that? Mothers who feed their babies up to 6 months of age must not use fluoridated water for mixing baby formula. Okay.
And I have seen reported that about 1% of any general population has a sensitivity, if not an outright negative reaction in the health. So given those two facts, how does the city government allow a population to impose a drug on everybody and give no remedy for the babies or for the 1%? It seems to me there's a legal case there. Maybe you know.
Exactly. All right. So the question is, how does the city, faced with that kind of prohibition by the promoters of fluoride, even, how does it get off giving fluoride to the whole city when a lot of the people are moms who are going to be making formula from powder and putting fluoridated water into a bottle? Okay. I was involved with the group in San Diego who asked that question about the fluoridated water, and the head of the group down there who was pushing fluoridation held up a bottle, a water bottle, Calistoga water in a bottle that you can buy from a store, and said, they will use this. They will use bottled water instead of our city fluoridated water. So that was their answer. Okay. Now the question was, they will do that if they're told, maybe. What about people who don't read the papers or listen to the radio and TV that much, and what are they going to do? Okay, so it's definitely a problem, and I thank you for that question. That could be a legal avenue to pursue.
The Healdsburg group did go before the council here in Healdsburg and with a letter and signatures to ask them to put a warning in the utility bills that it shouldn't be used for babies under 6 months.
Right.
And we got completely ignored, and they would not agendize that.
Well, sure.
action.
Yeah.
Mayor's agendas. Yeah.
Okay, because here's the problem. To do that, would actually be to admit, oh, we've heard about there's some side effects, at least for babies, under 6 months. And to hear about and acknowledge that you've heard about any side effects, but you're still doing it, is untenable. I think it's untenable.
They just ignored us.
I think the only thing they could have done was to totally ignore you. Mm-hmm. And if they're ever asked, why did you ignore them? Oh, we thought these were fluorophobe kooks.
Fluorophobe.
Yes, sir. You're the only man in the audience. No, there's another guy. There's three.
Four of you.
That's true. Okay. Now, I mention that because I have found in my medical practice and on this radio show that I do that women are much more active about protecting the community health than are men. It's odd. I bet there were a bunch of men that you were. Okay. Now, yes, sir.
As an aside, I was in CVC pharmacy the other day looking for water.
Yes.
And there was some infant water, they called it. And you looked at the label, fluoride added.
Right. Oh boy. Fluoride added. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that the old thing was, okay, it was good for all kinds of people, not just big people, but it's good for old people, it was good for young people, it's good for infants. You get those baby teeth really nicely fluoridated, and then there'll be less decay that'll happen to the adult teeth. Anyway, that's really old hat, exactly, to fluoridate infant water.
But the training toothpaste that you buy when your kids are toddlers and you're teaching them to brush their teeth says very prominently that it's not fluoridated toothpaste.
The training toothpaste. All right. For what? Yeah. And the dentist will talk about this. That kids have gotten ill from swallowing too much of the sweet, tasty toothpaste. Okay, that has been a problem. So the dentist will say, no, a pea size, just a small pea size amount of toothpaste on the brush. And parents, you are in charge of that. So, yep, that's.
You ever watch kids when they brush their teeth, though? We all have that reflex. If you have something in your mouth, you swallow, right? Even if they're okay, now spit it out, and they go. So some goes down.
Absolutely.
It's an automatic reflex.
Yes, and it's a problem. It's a problem. Fluoride is a problem.
Anybody else have a question?
Yes, and I wanted to thank Dr. Mock for coming. Walt Mock has single-handedly been the head of the Healdsburg emergency room. He's an emergency room physician, and he has done that for many, many years. And now they've turned it over to a group that's running that. So,
happened?
How long ago was the change between your administration and the new administration?
About 4 years ago.
About 4 years ago. Yeah. Okay. So, but Dr. Mock and I have known each other since we were interns in the public health service. And we were both raised and held in and still doing it, trying to.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.